So Robbie, it's great having you here today. We're going to talk about your book and your experience in leadership. For those that don't know, you're the author of Safar, An Immigrant's Journey of Life and Leadership, which is fantastic, and it's available on Amazon and where other great books are sold. But I want to get right into it, right? So let's do for the people that aren't familiar with you. Let's do just a little background. So your book top Amazon bestsellers in multiple countries. It's a long story with lots of stuff involved, but could you give us just a quick snapshot of like arriving in the United States with $20 to becoming a trusted leader and keynote speaker? Right? What inspired you to write about leadership?
First of all, Cliff, thank you for inviting and thank you for giving this opportunity to share a few words about myself. And as I write in the book to begin with, my story is one story out of billions of people. So I want people to be very clear that it's not that my story is the most important story. It's one story out of billions of people. And so everybody has a story. And as I write in the book, life is our toughest university, so to speak. We can go to all kinds of fancy schools, but life is by far the toughest school that anybody can, we all get in because the mere fact that we are born, we are in that university, but we never really graduate. And it keeps on testing us in every sense of the word throughout our life. And those of us who really try to get in touch with who we are and how that impacts our life, how we grow from it, instead of taking it as a problem or, as they say, somebody who says I can versus somebody who say I can, they're going to have a very different life as a whole. And so I think that's the mindset I've always had since I was a kid. And again, part of the thing I talk about in the book is none of us become who we are, where we are today, just because of the mere fact that we are absolutely this amazing thing. This amazing thing, if we think we are, it's because not just because of our effort that we put in individually, but it's the village. It's the people, known, unknown people that come in our lives, things that we develop as kids. So there's a whole range of things that happen in anybody's life, wherever you live in the world, that makes you who you are. And we are the sum of all our experiences in life. That's the bottom line. And if we take that experience as a school, then I think we can, and with a growth mindset, with a beginner's mindset, then I believe we can continue to grow into something that is our personal greatness, so to speak, not to show off to the world. Our personal greatness comes from taking those experiences and using it for whatever next happens in our life. So that in a nutshell is about the book. And the way that I wrote the book is, the reason I wrote the book was over the years of traveling around the world and working with people from about 80 different countries, several conversations like we are having today, I've participated in, and people will say, why don't you write a book? And the fact is that most of us, whatever we know about ourselves, we don't value. We kind of take it for granted. It's only others who see something in us sometimes. And so I guess for years and years, I ignored it. And last couple of years, there were things that happened with my kids at school, in the society, in many ways, as we are seeing today, as we speak. We are talking a lot, and I don't want it to be a political conversation, but as we are talking about, there is a lot of conversations and debate about whether it's immigrants, whether it's diversity, whether it's inclusion, equity. I feel like people really don't understand these things. People only understand, a lot of people don't even probably can say what is DEI. And so all of these things put together, when I think through how nature is diverse, inclusive, equitable in many ways, I take my inspiration from nature. A diverse nature continues to thrive and survive and thrive, whereas a monoculture doesn't last too long. It dies. And I think all of those things that's happening in the society, my personal life, my kids' experience, my experience at work, came together, and I said, maybe it's time that I share something about my experience with one caveat. I am not going to tell anybody what to do. I want people to decide what they have to do. The book is written just as an experience, a leadership and life experience from real life versus theory is the bottom line of this book.
Which is great, because I mean that's what real leadership is, right? You're not instructing people you have to do this. You're getting them to understand and to realize and take in information and make
Yes.
their own decisions. So that kind of leads me to our my next question is, in Safar and in your speaking engagements, you emphasize that leadership is an inside job. And so let's talk about that a little bit. What does that mean to you? And then why do you think that perspective resonates so strongly with audiences today?
So, like most people, I suppose, when they think of leadership, unfortunately, there's no one definition of leadership. There is a billion definition of leadership. But for the sake of our conversation today, like most people think of leadership, they're thinking about strategy, vision, marketing, market share, decision making. These are all the things that really conjures up people's imagination of who is a leader, and including how they look, how they talk. All of those things are what people think is leadership. But the real challenge, what is the real challenge in that? And the real challenge actually of leadership is leading yourself first. How do you learn to lead yourself first? What do I mean by that? And how did I learn about it? And I will share three examples from my book. The first is when in sixth, seventh grade, my dad allowed me to take the first round in his two-wheeler scooter. And I fell off that scooter. And at that point, I was very scared. And on my dad's instruction, I got up and he didn't allow anybody in the neighborhood to help me at the moment. And he made me get up and take the next round, which I was able to successfully complete. And now that may be a very minor incident in most people's eyes, but when I look back and connect the dot, I think that was one of the most pivotal moment in my life. It's what I call the inflection point, where the word fear, so to speak, got out of my vocabulary. And not that I don't have fear, but the basic gist of fear got out of my mind. And because I took the next round and completed the next round of driving, I built a certain level of confidence in self, although with the help of my dad's instruction. So here I bring 2 points together. Given the environment, given the people that support you and encourage you, if you take that little help, you can really do something great in your life. And once you do something, if I had stopped when I fell, I don't think so I would have developed that level of self-confidence at that age. I did. And as an athlete, I did very well all throughout my school. Part of that reason was that incident was always in the back of my mind. So that's one. Second was when I lost my eyesight in 11th grade. So think about it. Somebody in 11th grade, you're very young, 16, 17 years of age. Everybody has big dreams and they're thinking what. And when I was growing up in India, I was in New Delhi. We had just moved to New Delhi. I was a big cricket player. I was playing cricket at the grounds where some of the India's great cricket players played. One of my club mates even played for India. And so I had big dreams. And then one day, all that dream just came crashing down. I couldn't see. And then the doctor tells me we have to patch your eyes. And that meant for the next year, I couldn't really see well anything. And my sister helped me study for 12th grade exam. And then I lost a year after 12th grade, not knowing where I was going to go. Suddenly, this whole idea of being a superstar in cricket to becoming nobody and not knowing where I'm going to go, and when all my friends were already in college. All of that took a lot of self discipline, self reflection, and retrospective on there are other ways to live life. There are always alternatives and choices in life. And so that's again, it wasn't really how much people told me. It was more about me when I would go out for a walk and do my thinking. It just resonated with me that there are other ways to do things. And the third example I will share with folks is when after 12th grade exam, and these are all inflection points in life. One of our relatives challenged my sister's ability to be able to do anything in life without his help, and specifically going abroad. And what did I do? Instead of arguing with him, I just got up from the next day, went to every single consulate and embassy in New Delhi. As a 17, 16-year-old, I didn't really know what to ask. My English wasn't that great, but I ended up I didn't worry about any of those things. All I did was I had a mission. I'm going to go to every consulate and embassy, ask the question, see what they have to say about going to their country. What could I do? What could I study? And long story short, all of that led to me coming to Wisconsin 20, 30 days after I graduated in India. All of that to say that we all have this within us if we are listening to, if we are connected to ourselves, if we listen to the signals our body sends us, if we really listen in quietness at times and silence, many of the things in life we go through, our body sends a signal. Hey, take this, do this. And we tend to ignore because we live in a society which is full of noise. So those are the ways that I've developed and I continue to nurture this idea of you have to figure out how you're leading yourself. If you decide to do something, I felt lost many times, but through the help of many people, I was able to do the things I've done so far. And I think it's about resilience, it's about self awareness. It's also having the courage to look in the mirror and ask, am I a leader? Am I a leader? And I am I a leader that I would follow? That's even more profound. And or as I've come to know, leadership is not just about importance. It is about leading with one's heart and soul, because that's when you touch and connect other people. So that's what I think and talk about when I'm thinking about leading yourself first.
That's interesting. Which that type of leadership lends itself to success. And I remember seeing a quote that you had on success. You said, "Success is fleeting, but character is
Absolutely.
enduring." And so, yeah. So, do you have a like do you have a moment from your career when you chose character over short term success that ended up actually helping to either shape your career or resulted in more successes down the road?
I think there has been many, many incidences, and then again, I always am careful to talk about the character because we all look at it differently. And I don't want people to think that I am some perfect character and somebody else is not. I think it's all about we as individual trying to be better than we were yesterday in some small ways. And you develop these character traits with decision making, because decision is destiny and characters are a reflection of your decisions you make. So I'll give you one or two examples. Um, I think I write in the book about the incidents where I worked for a very large company and we were bought. Well, we were a startup company which got bought by a very large company. And there was a chance at that time that about 300 plus people who worked with me were all on different sorts of visas. And if the big company had pulled the rug under us, so to speak, by not allowing those processing to be done, that all these 300 plus people would have been impacted in a very, very negative way. And I was one of them, but I took a stance that instead of kissing up to the leadership in the hope that they will take care of me, I was concerned about the team as a whole. And I was in Brazil at the time. And I just told my wife, I came to Atlanta to meet the head of North America for that company. And I took a big chance. I told my wife, when I come back, I may not have a job, but I'm going to fight it out. And at that point, basically, I came with facts. I came with a resolve that I'm not going to be somebody's doormat, and I'm going to fight for the fairness. I'm not going to fight. And in that fairness means that company bought the startup company, so they had the right to do what they wanted to do. So I was going to give them that fairness. But I didn't see that this was fair for the company that they bought was built by these 300 plus people. They put their blood and sweat to build this company that they bought. So there was a need in my mind for fairness to let these people immigration papers be processed while they followed their business. And in that case, I was totally prepared to lose my job, which I did eventually. But the good news is that almost all 300 of them today are productive citizens of this country. And I don't take credit for it. All I'm saying is, knowing well that I would lose my job, I refused to live by the fear that if I did this, I'll be impacted. I was thinking about the team as a whole versus just me. So that's just one example. And it takes a lot of self confidence to do this. And also, one of the things that I would encourage people is caring is leading. Leadership is not that important. Leading is important. How you lead. Leadership, a lot of people will have titles and things like that, but how do you really lead? Leading is a verb, and that's why it's important. I had another opportunity where within my first to the second week of my job, I was asked to fire a bunch of people. And I didn't know the client, I didn't know the team, and I was being asked to really fire a large number of people. And I was put in a corner, in fact, in a situation where it was an indirect blackmailing of my role, so to speak. And I was not comfortable at all because I didn't know the team, I didn't know the situation, I didn't know the circumstance. It was hearsay, this or that. And I refused. And I did my own investigation. And fortunately for me, that investigation led to the right decisions where I found the people who were not really doing the job and just creating noise. I got rid of those people, but I kept 99% of the team. And that team came out to be a fantastic team. So these are areas where I am prepared to lose my job, not because I'm some great guy. It's because I've developed this sense of self faith, or what I call the element of faith in self. And also, I'm not willing to compromise on integrity and wellness of my team. And I know that I have enough skills and drive that come what may, I'll always find a way out. That is my mindset. And that's where I think one can develop some sort of a character trait. You do it enough number of times, you know you can do it. And look at anybody, Richard Branson. You think if he loses everything, he can make his life again? It's simple. He has done it too many times. He knows people. He'll make it happen. And same is true for each one of us. So those are the examples I'll give you as far as characters are concerned. Character is absolutely essential. It's not, money doesn't come before the character.
Well, that's interesting. You're talking about having the ability to bounce back no matter what, and you're going to be okay. And you've dealt with huge teams across many different countries, and so I think part of that is being connected, right? Having
Yes.
a network. And so you've spoken about the power of networking and the kind of doors that can open up. What would be some advice for you who's someone looking to grow as a leader? Maybe they're in a new leadership position or they're existing leader and they just want to improve their skills. Talk a little bit about what about.
So I think networking is not just important for leaders. Networking is important for life, because part of networking is about connection, but connection in a way that's not always as a taker, but as a giver. And that's where I think the key differentiation is in my mind. I go to many networking meetings. I meet a lot of people, or I get a lot of DMs online, and somebody will say, Well, I'm a financial analyst. I want you to connect with me for 30 minutes. Let me tell you what I do. So, in that conversation, this person has never tried a second to know who I am. He or she is just trying to sell his or her service
Right.
versus saying, let me understand who you are and how can I help. So, I think that one of the most basic things that all of us can do, whether you are a leader or you want to be a leader, is always find connections to help someone go where they want to go in life. So, example, somebody, you meet a young student who wants to study certain things and doesn't have an idea where they can go. Well, there's a couple of things you can do. You can help that student say, okay, these are the subjects that you want to study or area of work. And given your background, you could do your own research and say, these are the 10 schools I think you should investigate and get back to me if you have any questions. And if you know somebody in that school, connect that student to that particular person to say, hey, can you spend 15 minutes with this student? I had a guy recently at a coffee shop who himself is a writer. He is an undergraduate in international relations, but he doesn't want to work in that field. He wants to be an editor. So he saw me writing my book for many, many months in the cafe. So he came to me one day and said, Ravi, I want to be an editor. And I thought, since you're writing a book, you can help. I said, look, I'm not an editor, but I know a couple of them. Let me see if they're willing to talk to you. And I got him connected to one editor who's fantastic. She herself has written 24 books and she gave him some very valuable advice. So the next time I saw him, he was over the moon. He's like, wow, now I have a clear idea of what I have to do to prepare to be an editor. So that is, in my mind, the right way to network and connect people. I didn't do it because I wanted something from this kid. I did it because it gives me joy to see somebody else succeed in life. Similarly, when you want to connect with someone, I think it's very important. And one of the books that I will recommend everybody read is Never Read Alone by Keith Ferrazzi, I believe. Read that book. It's absolutely essential. So one of the things that people can do, if you want to be a leader, you want to emulate somebody that you admire and respect, try to find out certain things about this person and find an opportunity where you can possibly meet this person. So, for example, I love topics of health, nutrition, fitness, things like that. When I read the China study by Dr. T. Colin Campbell, and then Eat for Health by Dr. Joel Furman, or Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease by Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, I started to figure out, how do I meet these people? I didn't need anything from them, but I was impressed by their knowledge and just the sharing they did about their research and how it can help humanity. And I found a way. I went to an international conference where all of these pioneers of lifestyle medicine were there. I started to talk to them face to face and I built relationships with them. And to this date, they don't know me that well. I don't know them that well, but we have a relationship where I can write to them.
Hmm.
That's an example of how I watch documentary. I find somebody interesting. I'll Google that person and say, okay, who's this person? And I'll try to connect with them. A lot of people are scared of reaching. One of the best things one can do is raise your hand and ask questions. The worst somebody can do is no. Last week, I was in San Francisco. In a span of Sunday to Sunday, 7 days, I met over 150 people, from doctors to AI startup companies to investors. And in one place, I was just walking by. I saw an open mic. Asked the people what's going on. They said, this is a writers group. We meet Friday, once every Friday, and we talk about our poems and stories and things like that. I said, well, I'm visiting from Atlanta. I'm a writer. Can I share my poems? And I got to share two poems in public, about 150 people, and everybody said, where can I get this poem? So I made friends, I made connection, I made their day better, hopefully, by the fact that they liked the poem. Then I got a chance to speak at an investor event to women founders in IT. All of this because I simply said, I can come. I will join. I will share something, hopefully of value to others, instead of going there saying, you know what, I'm looking for a job. Can you find me a job? So that's the way you start to, and you take one step at a time. Today, I got a note from somebody that they are looking for a keynote speaker. And one other person in one of those meetings is the one who sent me that note.
Mm.
So this is how, don't go with the idea of this is what I want and so that is why I'm going to talk to Cliff. Go there saying, how can I add value to Cliff's life? And then hopefully that comes out in a different way. It may not be from Cliff. If you don't know somebody, find somebody in your circle of influence who can help someone. So always keep connecting people. That's the power of networking. Hopefully
Yeah,
that makes sense.
I mean, that's awesome because you know it's the old adage, right? You get back what you put out, and so you put it out to help people. People are going to obviously go like, "Well, I want to help Ravi," so
Yeah.
that's really great, and it kind of lends it into the thing too. What we've talked about before, where you said, you know, say yes to opportunities, especially for aspiring leaders, so they can test out um, their thoughts on leadership in actual action, right? Not just in theory or what we think it is, but the way to find out if what you think the way you should be leading is through saying yes to more opportunities. So, are there any opportunities that you said yes to where you're like, okay, that validated what I thought about leadership, or maybe it didn't? And then, you know, how would you encourage other leaders to take that leap? Because some people are really afraid that if they say yes, it's going to open up more responsibility or open them up to more scrutiny, you know, that type of thing.
So it's a pretty deep question, and there is no one answer to it. But I will say this: yes, say yes to a lot of things in life, more than no's. But you still have to have self-awareness about certain things in your about you. If somebody says, "Hey, Ravi, can you be a Navy SEAL today?" I'm gonna say no because I don't know how to swim, and I know enough that the training that is involved in Navy SEAL is not something that I'm ready for today at my age. So you got to have that self awareness about certain things in your life. So I would say yes to, yeah, can you work with Navy SEAL? Yes, I can work with Navy SEAL in a different capacity, but not trying to become a Navy SEAL today. I would have when I was 20.
Hmm.
So I think that awareness is really, really critical. Now, in terms of taking opportunity, yes, that again goes back to decision. The more, if you want to be a leader, then you have to ask for and go for leadership roles. That is the only way you're going to rubber meets the road and you get to see what you're good at, what you're not good at, how can you improve that, get feedback from your team, get feedback from your clients, and so on and so forth. Almost every role I've taken, I think most of my role in my career has been where I had 50 to 100% chance of failure. So that means I'm always on my toes. There is no sitting back saying I've made it. And when you go with that mindset, it's hard not to grow if you put the effort. It's hard not to grow. So, for example, when I got a chance to go to Colombia very early in my career, I wasn't very familiar with the software we were, the software system that we were implementing. We had implemented that for a client in Colombia, the country of Colombia. But I was considered to be one of the top guys in the company for a particular module out of the 26. There was a module that they thought and it was funny, they thought I was an expert because here is how people's perceptions are. I had read the module, I'd taken a short training, I'd done very little work in that space. Given that not many people had done that, I became the de facto expert in it. And so when there was this opportunity came in about 2000 to go to Colombia, it was still a very dangerous place, so nobody wanted to go. And our entire team had rolled off. I just talked to my wife and said, we were newlywed. This will either make me or break me. So should we go? And then she's like, let's go. And we went, we were there for about 2 months and we did solve the problem with the help of rest of my, developers team. But That raised my confidence and the confidence of my colleagues in me and my client as well, because I didn't lie to them. When I landed in Colombia, the first thing I told the CEO of the company was, I understand the problem. I've done some investigation. I don't have all the answers. I will need time to investigate with your team and my team in Germany and US, and we will get this done, but it may take time. It took us about 2 weeks to solve the problem. So having the courage to be upfront and honest with your clients and your teammates, having the patience and having this belief that we can solve this. It may take time, but we can solve it. All of these things that you develop, it can be taught, in my view. You develop that because you're beginning to live that life every day, not just at work, but even in personal life. And that was a great way for me to start to say, oh, if I did this, now people understand what I can do and I can understand what I can do. And that led to other opportunities where I went to other projects where there was a much bigger team, and I had to, at a very early age, start to stand up for myself, speak for myself, and speak for my team members who wouldn't speak up. That's another part of leadership. A lot of the leadership today is all about themselves. What I'm talking about is you have to be that person who speaks for other people who are not in the room. Because you know them, you're taking the time to understand who they are. And so those are the areas where, and it gives me a lot of joy to be able to speak about somebody who's not in the room because of whatever reason they are not there or they don't speak up. And I want to make sure they get the recognition and rewards for what they do versus being just put under the rug and nobody knows about them. So I don't know if that answers your question, Cliff, but those
Yeah,
are
no, that does.
some
That's
areas.
it really helps. I think it's just a great example. And you're talking. I thought about something that we in the beginning. You talked about your experiences helped you become a better leader, right?
Yeah.
And when with leadership, we're always thinking about success. We're always thinking about did we achieve these goals? Did we hit these numbers, or did we hit these metrics? But we never talk about leadership when something doesn't go right, or there's a failure or something. So, how does someone who's a leader recover or deal with something that is considered less than optimal or a failure?
So I think this may sound like a cliche, but I think this is, again, it goes back to your character. It goes back to your self-belief, self-awareness, and confidence in you and your team and the trust in you and your team. Anybody who sits out here and says, I will guarantee a certain result, at some point they're lying, because we all, yes, there are certain things, I've run marathons for many years. I can tell you that I can train somebody to run a marathon, but will I guarantee they will finish the marathon? I can't. Because what if the weather is 90 or 150 degrees that day and they collapse? Or there is somebody who just runs into another runner. There's a million things that can go wrong while you're running. Your shoe, you sprain your leg, whatever. Same way in any projects that I've been on and most people have. This notion that leadership says do everything in your, I don't care what happens, I want the result, is the wrong way to bring people together to do something creative and significant. I think the way approach I would suggest is, team, we are going to succeed or fail as a team. It's not about one person. We are going to put everything in our power based on our experience to work towards the success of this project. Good, bad, ugly. All of our experiences we are putting on the table. We are going to get to know each other as a team, how we work with each other well. We are going to do everything possible to make sure the chemistry of the team is good. And we are going to make sure there's clarity of purpose and clarity of deliverable. And we have a clarity in our communication with the client and the internal team. When you do all of those things, you tick mark all of those boxes to say, yes, we are doing that on a regular basis. It's not like you just do it at the kickoff and forget about it. You have to do it throughout the project. When you do all those things, I think the probability of success increases dramatically. But when we do lip service of success, where all the reverse of the success goes to, so to speak, the person with the title at the top, and all the other people, they get maybe a reference once in a while mentioned that, oh, yeah, they did a great job. I think that's when you see that slowly the performance goes down, the confidence goes down. So I think those are I see these things as very simple. I don't try to complicate it. We control the effort. Outcome is not that we control. And this is not a cliche. This is exactly how it is. You driving a car, you may have a brand new car. There's no guarantee that car will take you from point A to B. There may be an accident, there may be a road closure, there could be a hurricane, snowstorm, you name it. It's the same way I look at success. I'm not chasing success. I'm chasing my performance. I'm chasing my skill sets. I'm chasing my relationships. I'm building better relationships, hopefully. And I am making sure that everybody in the team is improving, not just one person.
Right, right. It sounds like you're doing what you can to optimize the opportunity to achieve what your goal is, but then that may change or something may happen, but then as a team, then you're able to modify and to not just say this was a failure, to say, okay, what's our new goal, or here's a new element that we've introduced that now we need to deal with and something. So the old adage, there is no I in team, right? Right?
I think I'll say, Cliff, people stop breathing. You look at communication and many projects or many companies. You go to Google, Zoom meetings, people are not breathing. Part of the challenge of us connecting with each other and success is you have to breathe. And once you breathe, you can think. And when you think, you can act. When you act, there is an outcome. And if you don't like the outcome, then let's sit down instead of sending an escalation letter to 50,000 people to showcase how great you are and how everybody else is bad. The best thing I suggest is, if the outcome is not something you like, the first question to ask is, what can we learn from this outcome? What were the good, bad, and the ugly of this? And maybe this outcome is actually pointing us to go to a direction that's better than we had ever thought about, versus sticking to the fact that this was the outcome we wanted and we did not get it. So those are some simple ways I look at. I don't complicate this stuff.
Yep. No, yeah. I mean, usually simple things are the best. I wanted to talk to you about, you have a number of keynotes that you talk about, but each one of those is just packed full of insights and experiences from your life, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
What is your goal, or what is like a takeaway that you hope that anybody in the audience would leave with after hearing you speak?
There's a couple of takeaways that I think I'm hoping that the audience will take away. Number one, the most obvious one, is the life lessons. Life lessons are your best school. Don't look at other people. Yes, always read about other people's life, what they did, how they did. Everything is great, but don't ignore your own life. Okay, your own life is full of examples, and examples that will inspire you, examples that will give you headache, examples that will push you forward. Pay attention to your own life instead of worrying about the whole world. Just attention to your life, see how you can get better, and listen to get used to your body and mind and soul to say, how do I propel myself from point A to point B? That's one thing. I want people to understand the power of perseverance and resilience. Literally, nothing important happens sitting down. Energy and momentum are two of the most important things in life. If you don't have energy, you can't do anything. And if you cannot maintain momentum and you stop, it's going to be a really long road. Doesn't matter what you do. So I think it's very, very critical that we get into this practice of understanding resilience and perseverance will need energy and momentum. And with time, effort, you can get to wherever you want to go in life. Maybe not at the same time, maybe not exactly the same way you wanted, but that's the other part I want them to understand. The third part, as we touched about earlier in the talk, is decision making. Decision making is where everything rests. Decision is destiny. The more decisions we make, the better we become and the better we develop our, what I call the element of faith in self. We got to develop a sense of self that come what may, I will succeed. And the decisions we make should be such that we are not tied. We decouple the outcome from the decision. The more decisions we make without worrying about the outcome, you become a beginner's mind. When you have a beginner's mind, I think there is more possibilities in life than just worrying about this stuff.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
eventually you start to master your life, and the more decisions you make, life opens up. There are 10 decisions. If somebody makes only one or two decisions in life versus 100,000, this 100,000 will give you all these 100,000 plus permutation combination of life experiences that you'll never have if you just sit around in safety of your own home. So I think those are some of the key things I would like people to take and never give up. People give up too easily, too fast. And I'm not judging anybody. There are reasons people give up sometimes. Very valid. Right now in Gaza, I can't expect a young kid or a parent to think, oh, I think I can dream now in the next month I will have this beautiful house built. That will be wrong of me to assume that. I understand that it'll be a totally wrong thing to say. But in normal circumstances, people give up very easily. And all of the book, in my book, almost every single story is pointing to the fact that it took me 9 years to get my first job, professional job. People get upset that they send 100 resumes. I don't know how many resumes I've sent, how many interviews I've done. So those are some things I want people to take away from this call.
Yeah, and I think people have had it to the point where if at any time success has come easy, they have the expectation it's always going to be easy, and that's not that's not the case. And so I love the idea of not giving up. So
Yes.
that's or not, and not giving up based upon the circumstances that are more normal, right? That you
Yes.
should be getting.
Yes.
So
And also, there is a point where you have to understand sometime giving up is not a bad thing. Like
right,
in business, you have an exit plan, right? So you have done everything possible, but you have defined certain things really well to say, these are the things, these are the timeline, and these are the things. If it happens, we continue. If it doesn't happen, we'll not continue. That's different because you have made a very informed decision versus saying, you know what, I've sent 100 resumes, I'm giving up.
yeah,
That is what I'm talking about. You can't do that. You have to change your strategy, you have to change the story you're telling yourself, why I'm not getting the jobs and things like that.
yeah. Robbie, this has been great. For anybody who would like to hear more of your story or bring your leadership lessons to their teams, what's the best way for them to connect to you as a speaker and to inquire more?
So a couple of things. My website is under construction. It should be soon available. It's going to be journeywithravi.com. They can write to me at Ravi Prakash at yoursuffer.com. Again, Ravi Prakash at your suffer as in the book, say FAR suffer.com.
Yeah,
And third is they can connect with me on LinkedIn
yeah,
and they can DM me on LinkedIn. And as I make progress, there will be other ways that people can connect, but those are the three main ways that people can connect with me today.
super, super. Well, thanks for sharing all your leadership and your stories. And people, go out, get the book. You'll be amazed at the stories that you'll hear. I was, and it is truly an example of overcoming, saying yes, and not giving up. So thanks again, Robbie, for being here.
Thank you, Cliff. Thank you for the opportunity.